Hey, thanks so much for jumping in and checking out today's episode of the podcast where I sit down with my friend John Selby and he tells his story of rebuilding his life after addiction and some of the challenges he faced. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Now, we've known each other for quite a while now. I mean, it's got to be at least, 15 years almost? 16 years. Oh, my goodness.
Well, almost 16.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we share a birthday.
Yeah.
Same exact day, which is crazy. I know one other guy. I know he's not with us anymore. He's older gentleman. He passed on a couple years ago, but also has the same birthday. So I knew two people with birthday on the same exact day that we share a birthday on.
That's wild.
Which is crazy.
Wild.
But we met in Teen Challenge, and you got an incredible testimony of that part of your life, and I didn't really want to talk about that today because I think that like both of us as former addicts on the other side of that, like, we've grown beyond that part of our testimonies.
Yes.
100%, right? And so sometimes it can get easy to get clicks and get people to tune into a conversation when you start talking about all the gory drug details. But I don't think people think about the challenge of building the life on the other side of addiction. Not only putting all the pieces together, but man, my battles today aren't drugs anymore, right? Like I am an average dude trying to figure out how to raise 4 girls, trying to figure out how to put all these pieces into my life. But I was thinking about something, before we got together. So I preached on Sunday on Elijah and his journey to Carice when he was at the ravine there with the ravens and all that stuff, and he really had to rely on God in that season. But what I talked about was how God took Elijah to this wilderness. He cut him off for a season. That word actually means, Carice means to be cut off. And man, it really made me think about your journey before you got married, before you had kids, after Teen Challenge. And you were back at Teen Challenge, you were getting ready to serve, you were excited to serve. And I almost liken that story to Elijah. Like, he went to give the word to Ahab, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, God just cuts him off from the world. And I remember your accident. And I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit because I think it was, number one, that part of your story is so relevant for what I preached on Sunday. But I also think that and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, you can speak to this more, but that it did something incredible in you to set you up for the long-term success. So maybe for those who aren't familiar, well, I know people aren't familiar with what happened. Can you mind sharing kind of what took place, what cut you off from the world, if you will?
Well, you're talking about the accident, right?
Yeah.
Before I came over here, I was like, man, it's been almost 16 years. I thought to myself, I said, wow, 16 years ago, I had just pretty much now hit rock bottom 16 years ago today. And then I thought, I said, man, here am I 16 years ago, my parents were wondering, what are we going to do with John? Mm-hmm. And then, it was that point, God, I think, started beginning he allowed me to hit that rock bottom, so he can begin a new work in me. And then with the accident, we were on our way to Annie's birthday party. Actually, we're on the way here.
Yeah.
And then we had a head-on collision. It cracked my L3, L2 vertebrae.
Yeah.
And my dad and I had the same breakage in our back. It cracked my mom's femur. It laceration to my liver. I had brain hemorrhaging. And then, of course, we had to go to the hospital. And then, of course, I was shortly after graduated Teen Challenge. And then I knew a lot of times when you go to the hospital like that, you get these these painkillers and these, just the stuff to control the pain. And at that point, I was, almost not fresh out of Teen Challenge.
Yeah, I don't know if you had barely started your internship. Yeah. I think you had been helping the ministry out for a month or two. And I think you're committed on for a while, but then all of a sudden this thing happens and completely redirects what's going to happen in your life. And you went to the hospital. I don't get to talk about this to a lot of people, but I remember showing up at the hospital and hearing the doctor or somebody in the room tell me that you were adamant about refusing the painkillers. And listen, I'm a wimp, okay? L2 and L3, brain hemorrhaging, all this stuff going on. And that type of resolve was what always impressed me. Man, my freedom and what I have in Christ is so important to me at this moment.
Yeah, because I was just so scared on Because at that point I was in ICU overnight. They were debating on whether they should operate on my back or not. They were kind of in the air. They fit me for a cast that I had to wear, other than sitting on my back. That's the only time I could take it off. Yeah. But the nurse would come in, how's your pain? I would kind of force her to lie. So I'm good, and the whole time it was just killing me. But I was so scared because every time I wanted to make that choice to say, I want a little bit of relief, I remember people coming in the Teen Challenge hooked on opioids, hooked on Oxycontins, hooked on this because of an injury that they had sustained. Yeah. And they said, well, they were taking it like the doctor prescribed. And so you know it, after the hospital, you go home, they're saying, here, take this 4 hours, and good to go. And next thing you know it, they're constantly taking it. They're on it forever. And that always ran through my mind about, gosh, I'm afraid to do this because I'm afraid I'm going to start getting addicted. Because the devil was saying that, you're going to get addicted, but when Christ said, I have set you free, you are free indeed. And I knew, I was free from it, but I was afraid to get back into it.
Yeah, sure.
If that makes any sense.
It does.
My flesh. Yeah. Then I remember you telling me, because I got to the point where when I said, yes, I need some, they were having to give me way more than what I needed because I was waiting so long because the pain was just so much. So they were giving me more than what I should. And I remember you telling me, quit being so stubborn, right, and let the doctors do what they need to do. Yeah. So at that point, I said, God, I'm gonna have to do something.
Yeah, you're not going to hear a drug rehab director tell somebody too often to take pain pills.
Take pain pills,
right?
Yeah,
so
yeah. No, you don't ever hear that very often.
Pretty serious, but
yeah, that's just that point where I was just so scared because I was fresh out of Teen Challenge. They said Teen Challenge doesn't start until year, and then during that visit in my hospital, I met a friend, well, my wife now, but Amanda, and she told me not to say anything embarrassing, so I kind of keep it low. But she was down for spring break, and she was coming to the hospital, driving to UVA every day and coming to see me. Yeah, driving across that mountain every single day.
Yeah. So that's where y'all's relationship really began.
Pretty much started.
That was the empathy, right? Of your relationship.
Yeah. 14 years later, I never thought that we'd, be married to her.
Yeah.
We'd have two kids.
You have 2 kids.
We have 2 kids. We have a daughter who's 7, Addison, and we have Levi, who's 2.
Yeah.
So a 7-year-old and 2-year-old. Never would have imagined my life.
It's interesting. Like, I don't. God doesn't give sickness to people. I know that that's not the scripture. He doesn't cause accidents to happen in our lives. I don't think God directed that car.
Yeah.
But I'm always amazed to see how, we talk about all things work together for the good. And how in those seasons of entire life plan changed, you're now going to have to go through this tremendous recovery process and have to walk through all that. But yet in that moment, number one, your sobriety and your freedom from addiction is tested a little bit with the opioids. How much resolve do I really have and all of that. And that's all reasonable. But then also in that moment, you meet your wife, and I think there's more to the story, right? Like with your probation and your fines and how you had some pretty significant restitution to pay off, right?
Prior to Teen Challenge, I got 2 felony charges on me, and they ended up being restitution of $56,000 I had to pay.
Yeah.
But during that accident, I never thought that the outcome would be what it is.
Yeah.
And I believe, like you said, the sobriety was tested.
Yeah.
And I believe God had His hand on me because in my mindset, I was, cautious, knowing where I've been, and then what could lead to a spiraling addiction downhill.
Yeah.
If I didn't continue relying on Him, if I didn't continue to say, hey, look, once this pain's under control, once you get to where I can just take ibuprofen and stuff like that, I'm gonna ditch this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna continue. I'm not gonna continue letting the doctor say, here, take a little more of this, take a little more of that. I'm not gonna continue to do that.
Yeah.
And at that point, if that accident would have happened, would she have gone to would I have even crossed any more paths with her?
Yeah.
For a week straight, she came to the hospital every day.
I remember that. Yeah, she was there.
And then, she even visited me when I was back home.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's a 6-hour drive.
Yeah. Wow.
And but the restitution, and then God made a way to where I was able to pay that off.
Yeah.
And the probation, 99 years, is what the judge gave me. I remember in the courtroom, I was walking over with 4 other guys, and we were sitting. We were all chained together while I was in jail, because I did 3 months and 13 days in jail when I went for my sentencing.
Yeah.
And I remember you took me from Teen Challenge, and
Dude, that was a long drive back alone. You punk.
we went. Listen to this. We went to Chili's and said, "Hey, how does it feel to be your last meal?"
Right.
And the whole time, the judge put me in jail, and I had to stay there, and you had to take that long, dreaded drive home.
Yeah.
Here I was in jail, right after Teen Challenge. Man, here I was sitting in jail, realizing, I said, well, your sins catch up to you. Mm-hmm. Even though I was free, even though I was a newborn Christian, I still had to.
Yeah.
I had to deal with that. I had to deal with the consequences.
100%.
I mean, everybody in life deals with consequences. That's what I tell my kids all the time. I mean.
And that's challenging too, right? Because I think probably through the course, and I don't know, I can't think of specific people, but I've seen people come through TC with charges a lot worse.
Yeah.
And not have to do a day.
Yeah.
And so you're at the end of your program. You've done a year plus already.
Yeah, I graduated June 25th and went to jail July 10th and got out October 23rd. 3 months and 13 days. And, my faith was tested in there.
Yeah,
definitely.
100%.
Definitely. Yeah. Because my charges were violent. They were setting it up to where I wasn't going home that day. My probation officer said, "Hey, look, we're going to set you up to go to a prison boot camp because they're not going to send you to Teen Challenge because you already went there." So I'm thinking, oh my Lord, so here I am, had everything set up, shots and everything, and then my lawyer said, "You're not, don't look forward to going home today. You're probably not going to go home."
Yeah.
And then I remember the judge sentenced me to 10 years to the arson charge and 10 years to the breaking and entering, run consecutive back to back. All suspended but time served.
They always pause, right? They sentence you first, they pause, and then they tell you it's suspended.
Yeah, I mean, and then, but prior to that, I was just pleading to God while I was waiting to be seen in a room. They bring you with 4 other people, and then all 4 of them people got rejected bond.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, Lord, and then prior to that, when I was sitting there, they sentenced somebody else to 15 years.
Wow.
And here I am sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, what is, what's going to, I'm sitting there pleading to God, while I was shackled up in a room, probably about this size, before I go into the courtroom. And then, all suspended but time served. And then I continued my journey with Teen Challenge. And then, I was still, I hadn't met Amanda yet, and I was just praying for God, God, what's the next step in my life?
Yeah.
I need to know, you've gotten me through this. I know you're not going to leave me hanging now.
Yeah.
So, but at that point I was pretty much forced to rely on him.
Yeah.
What's my next step in life?
Yeah. It's interesting to see how all that ties together because TC, the jail sentence, the probation, the restitution, and then now it's okay, now I'm starting to rebuild my life, right? You're starting to rebuild your life, trying to figure out, okay, how do I be faithful in the ministry? Because you had a desire to serve in the ministry, but then also, by the way, I've got to earn money over here because the court's going to want their money. And then in the middle of all that, this life-changing accident happens. And now you're faced with a whole nother set of challenges to test the faith. And like that's a lot back to back to back. And then you lived it, but you see, but dude, that's a lot for somebody, especially fresh in their recovery, to be tested with all that back to back to back. And so you guys go home after the accident, you're going on this journey of recovery and come out on the other side of that. And so $56,000 in restitution. How did you, because that's gone. That's gone now, right?
Yes, correct.
So how did the Lord work all that out for you in regards to providing when you were trusting in him?
Well, we had a I guess a settlement with that, and that was able to help pave the way for that.
How did that feel to go into the office and write a check and pay that off?
It felt great, and what the first thing that came to my mind was you got to tithe it.
What? No. Yeah.
Because I'm thinking like, man, is it income from work, or is it income from this?
Right.
No, you got to tithe it.
Yeah.
And
wow.
and writing, I don't know if you want to add this out, writing a $14,000 check.
Yeah.
To a church.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, but
it's a big deal.
I mean, it is what it is. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
So there's 60 gone.
Yeah. But you walk through this journey though, and you're talking about like even going back to what I mentioned with the sermon I preached on Sunday about Elijah, like I'm gonna feed you by a raven. Like, okay, thanks God. This is like I don't know. I read the Bible like that because I try to put I try to put those pieces together. Like what is this like? What is this gonna look like? And then Elijah's there. God's sending the raven. The provision's there. The brook's getting ready to dry up because Elijah had just prophesied a drought. And then God's like, okay, now go to this next town and go talk to a widow. Like, she's broke. Like, she's, they're in a drought. She probably don't have food. She probably don't have good water. But God is like, Elijah, take the next step. Take the next step and show me your faithful obedience, your ability to depend on me, to be your source of provision. And it's almost like I hear you like saying that, it's like, okay, God, here's the next step, right? I don't know how I'm going to reconcile paying off my fines and getting restitution. And I know you called me to go serve in this ministry for this season. So I'm just going to take the next step.
Yeah.
And then during that season, it's like, oh crap, I just got head-on collision by a car. Entire life has changed overnight. But yet, okay, God, I know in this moment, my freedom, I need to stay faithful to this. I'm just going to be obedient. And you meet your wife. And then the Lord blesses that faithfulness. Because I know the settlement didn't happen for a year or so.
At least.
Yeah. So you had
still had to make ends meet.
You had plenty of time too to, I'm going to say prove, not that God was looking for you to prove it, but almost show that you weren't going to be dependent on these pills. Yeah. You broke off of those and moved on, right? Yeah. And so it's just the faithfulness, dude. It's so awesome.
Yeah, and I just give all the glory to God on that, because when when that money came in, you can immediately like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'd
have bought an espresso machine.
oh my gosh, but God's like, hold on, back up, back up. It's not yours.
Yeah, it's good.
First you need to give me mine. Of course, then I had to pay the fines, and then what more yet, when I was pretty deep in my drug addiction, I worked at a bowling alley. And he hired me because he knew my dad. And I think he kind of knew I was kind of in a rough situation. He thought maybe hiring me would kind of help set me. But I was still in it, and I was stealing at this point, stealing from him, from the business. And then the next thing, you need to go and you need to pay back what you took.
Wow.
So here I am, in my room.
Man.
I mean, that was hard.
I've never heard this before.
No.
This is the first time I've heard this.
Never really. I think I maybe told Amanda.
Yeah.
That was hard. So I'm thinking man, God said, well, it's not yours. And you not only stole from him, stole from the business, stole from the family. Because at that point he had 2 kids.
Wow.
Probably around Addison's age maybe now. And then he said, well, you need to make that right.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking oh Lord, because he fired me around the spot. Have fun with the $2,000 you stole from me.
He never called the police on you or anything?
No.
So how was his reaction when you went and made it right?
Oh yeah. So check this out. So I called him on the phone, right? Hey, this is so and so. I want to come, talk to you. Okay. I was nervous. My hands were clammy, so I went to the bank and pulled the money out. And here I am. I wanted to explain my story to him first before coming to it here. Because, he didn't. At this point, he probably didn't know
Right.
that I won the team challenge. Well, he could have think I was slinging dope. Who knows?
Yeah.
So before I did that, I wanted to explain my story so he's not so reluctant on taking the money, because I feel that he needed to have this money.
Yeah.
Either him or somebody's taking it, because I got to give it back to you.
God just taking it out of your hands.
Yeah, pretty much.
Good.
And he would just. I mean, he was at all on what changed me, and that I actually came back.
Wow.
And gave it back to him.
Yeah.
Because I explained, I said, I only not stole from you or the business, but I stole from your whole family. And that is almost like a release.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
then during that transition, I was serving in the as a youth for the church I was going to at that time. That I wrote the
right.
big church. Oh yeah, sure, you can do whatever. No, he didn't say that.
Yeah.
He didn't say that. But I was serving there, and then still talking with Amanda. Having that long distance relationship, figuring out, still what to do in life. Do I I knew I believe I was supposed to marry Amanda, but how is this going to work with, am I going to live back in my hometown or am I going to live down here?
Yeah.
So I was contemplating, I don't know what to do, and then one night I was driving around and we were pretty serious at this point, me and Amanda, I think we were engaged, and I think, God, I don't know what to do. Here it was again, still trying to rebuild my life, and God, I need you. No matter, I don't think no amount of money in the world. If you're a Christ follower, you can't depend on the money.
Yeah.
Because you can't buy everything.
Right. That's
good. I think like, God, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
So I was driving around the private community that I worked in, and then I was like, man, I just need a sign. God, you're gonna have to give me something.
Yeah.
Do I stay down here and start my family down here, or do I come up here to the Shenandoah Valley? And then the youth night, it happened to where somebody was able to step in that role, and it almost kind of gave me confirmation. Said, hey, I think now this is the time to leave.
Yeah.
Man,
I was thinking, like, as you were talking about going back and like making restitution, right? And that being a part of your journey, and the Lord very clearly speaking to you and saying, like, give this money away. Like, it's not yours, and I think there's so much there, but I think that a lot of times we come to the cross and like our sins before God are wiped away as far as the east is from the west. And that's amazing. But a lot of times I think people miss the part that just because God's forgiven us doesn't mean we've made everything right with the people that we hurt. Yeah. And I think sometimes we gloss over that, and to be able to not only like walk this faith journey, but then be in a position that like, you probably could have just, whatever, it's been so long, he probably doesn't care anymore, and he might have moved on. But the testimony to come forth not only of the power of Jesus working in your life, but then the integrity piece to go back. Like what an amazing story, what an amazing testimony for the kingdom of God. Because a lot of times it's all about Jesus, it's all about his will, but then we don't think about the people that we've wronged.
That we've hurt.
And like fixing that, like that's the best sermon we could ever preach. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And then like I don't know. I would think that it probably changed that guy's life. At least something about his life. Yeah. And one to the money's inconsequential, but the act. And I don't know I don't know if he's a Christian. I don't know much about him at all. Yeah. But that act probably told him everything he needs to know about Jesus.
Yeah. And I believe, I've heard of, just probably just as well as you did, heard of a lot of people, a lot of that relationships. But some of the times I look back, because I struggled with that. Even my dad's, because what I did to him, you know what I'm saying? How it happened, how it transpired, how it went down, he immediately fired me. He said, don't you ever show your face up here again. Of course, then I got scared at that point because I was, paranoid and all that. And they're like, I don't know if you should. Maybe, I think I may be wrong, but I think they mentioned about maybe some mailing something to them. But I'm like, I got to do this face to face. I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't know how it was all going to. I don't know if he's going to say, I don't want to see your face here ever again. Leave. I know how all that was going to transpire. But I know I had to make that one right. Even though I messed up toxic relationships, I believe that it probably wasn't best for me to even try to even go back and restore those. Because it was toxic anyway. Yeah.
It's that word from the Lord though, right? It's I gotta leave the brook. Oh, right.
Yeah.
And it's maybe not exactly the same, but
I understand what you're saying.
But like I gotta go. The Lord is telling me to move from this place where I am to this place over here. Yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen on the other end.
Yeah.
I don't know the reaction. I have no clue that the widow's going to have these endless jars of oil that just show up on the other side of it. But all I know is I have to take the journey to the next spot.
I got to do it. Yeah.
And it's that obedience, right? And that is such it's such a vital part of the faith that people miss. Like when the Lord speaks, like we don't get to negotiate.
No, I tried. Yeah. I just didn't work.
Like, I don't know. I've been having this conversation with my kids this week that delayed obedience is really disobedience. Yeah. And at times, and I think there are times God gives us grace on all of that. But for us, it's like, man, I want to be able to be in that position, like you're talking about, like something as would seem as trivial as $2,000 that has been moved on. It's probably been forgotten about and moved on. I'm going to be faithful enough with my testimony, not before people, but before God. I haven't told anybody about this other than my family and Amanda. You didn't do it for attention. Yeah. It was obedience to the Lord, very clearly. And again, now that testimony is going to go out, we didn't plan. Right. Yes.
Whenever I told them, don't tell anybody I did this.
Yeah. But you know what, man, it's been so long, and it's not a thing where you're giving to get the attention before man, but now 10 years, how many ever years removed, it's a testimony of the Lord's faithfulness. Yeah. And I think those stories inspire other people to have a little bit of courage, to make those bold moves of obedience, and that's a big thing. So you're married now, kids and all that. So how's parenting, right, on the other side of all this, man?
I thought I rely on God, but now with the parenting, it's a blessing. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I love it. I love my kids. I love my wife. My wife's the best thing that probably ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Besides my salvation, the parenting. I mean, it's hard and challenging at times, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to parent the way God wants me to do.
Yeah.
And also,
hoping we don't mess them up.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, my daughter is just like me.
Yeah.
Looks like her mom, thank God, but just like me.
Right.
So we're at a stage now where it's just, I can't shut up. When it's time to say, hey, when you do this, she says something, I fire back.
Yeah.
But out of all the flaws, I want her to see that just because I'm her father, I'm not perfect.
Right.
And I'd like for her to see my flaws.
Yeah.
Because the moment she messes up, it's good to feel that natural guilt. Mm-hmm. That natural guilt. I mean, it's
conviction, right?
Good for that natural conviction.
Yeah.
And knowing her dad is not, even though she has no clue what my testimony is at this point.
Yeah.
Because she's too young.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's good to see my imperfections as well, because I am by far perfect.
Yeah.
I try to be a great dad, but I'm far from being perfect.
Yeah, that came up on my Facebook page the other day. I shared a post about Chloe had a homeschool project about the family tree and wanting to ask about the past and all that, and at Chloe's 13, for context, I'm not giving this answer to a 5-year-old for those who are watching, but, Chloe's like, what did you do after high school? I did math. And Ashley just gives me this look, and she knows, like, my girls they haven't been shielded from this.
They've seen the Teen Challenge.
They've been at every Teen Challenge choir service for their lifetime. And that includes some of the choir services where you've got the saved, not sanctified students sharing, and language hasn't quite caught up to their belief in the Bible and all that. And so like people say things from the stage that as the leader, you're like climbing under the chairs. So they've been in some of those services. But like somebody commented, and it was a great comment that, she said in the comments, she said, well, you don't hide it from them. I feel like we should, it would be better for our kids to learn this from us than from the world. And I'm like, well, of course, my kids have known about it. I was just more feeling awkward. Like, I'm glad this paper doesn't have to go to a teacher. like we're homeschoolers. And so, but where do you stand on that? Like, would you plan on sharing parts of your testimony, all of your testimony?
She, I don't know. I can't remember how but Addison knew I went to jail.
Okay.
Now I can't remember how that transpired, how that even got to her, but she's asked me numerous times, Dad, can you tell me why you went to jail? I said, not right now. You know what I'm saying? When you get older, 12, she said, how older? When I'm 8? No, when you're a little older.
Yeah.
12, 13, when you're a teenager, when you can understand. But I just told this, Daddy did some bad decisions. He made some mistakes.
Yeah.
And he just had to live with it, and I told her, like I'd tell her, like, sometimes we have to live with the consequences, of our actions, whether we like them or not. And we try to do that with life with her now.
Yeah.
When she does something now and it's hard for her to face the consequences, like no tablet for 24 hours or something like that, and we try to tell her that, hey, we're protecting you now, because if Daddy acts like this at work, he's not going to get a tablet taken away from him. He's probably going to get fired.
Lose his job. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's worse when you're an adult.
Yeah.
So we try to shelter you from that, or actually make you learn by the consequences based on your actions as a child.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to do the same consequences as an adult for a child. You know what I'm saying? If that makes any sense.
It does, yeah.
So we try to do that.
You're not locking your kid up. But
yeah. And Amanda does a whole lot better than I do. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm struggling that aspect. I'm struggling.
Yeah, discipline, man.
It's hard. It's not my forte.
Disciplining kids is like trying to figure that process. So it's not just corrective action, but there's growth. It's like we want to not just correct the behavior, but help them grow through it too. And it's difficult, man, because we've got 4 kids in the house. One of them is only 1. She's not being disciplined, right? She's not being corrected. Yeah. But like the other 3, all of them respond differently too. I even noticed this. We were dealing with an issue the other night. One of my girls, she gets gangster, just doesn't care. You just kind of slouches down in the chair, when you're correcting her and all that, and it's just like
shuts down.
It's not even a shut down. It's just like, okay, I'm done with this now. Almost like okay, now what? And that type of that behavior. The other one, it's very emotional, and it's like the entire world is being stripped away from her because she's being corrected. And they're like, those are 2 extremes, and like trying to figure out how to correct both, but meet them where they're at and where their emotions are and how they process things is interesting. And I'm learning too. I'm with you, man. Like, my wife is a godsend on all that. Because she's got the patience with the children, and I'm a pretty patient guy as well. But like, I don't know. I don't.
I keep, she says it and I say something.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We're back and forth.
Yeah.
And when she does something, and then Levi sees that, and then of course she gets corrected, but Levi's 2.
Right.
So she gets the consequence. Well, why doesn't Levi get this?
Why does he do it? Yeah.
Well, because he's, he doesn't understand yet. We're starting a little bit. And that reminds me of when I was, like as you're growing up as a immature Christian, you know what I'm saying? It's a whole lot different. Mm-hmm. When you do something and God corrects you, based on when you know more and what you should or shouldn't be doing,
Yeah.
You have more knowledge of it.
Yeah.
and you still do it anyway.
Yeah.
It kind of like the consequences is a little more rougher.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah.
When you could be doing it when you first out of Bible college. You know what I'm saying? And then as a mature, it's just a whole lot different.
Yeah.
That's what I try to explain to her. And then of course, I just keep talking, and it just doesn't work out. She tunes it out and just kind of just.
Yeah. Yeah, that discipline stuff, man, is challenging. I told Ashley quoted me my sermon the other day while we were correcting them, and I'm like, I appreciate that, but like, no, like please, not in the living room. They're never going to want to listen to me preach again. No, but it's good, man, because our church, we do it. The teenagers are in the sanctuary. We don't have youth on Sunday mornings. And I'm pretty down. I try to be pretty down to earth. I tell a lot of stories, try to be relatable so teens can sit in there. And so the girls hear it anyways, and that connection piece. And they're at that age now where they're a little bit older. Like I gave them an assignment to go to the Bible the other night and look up some scriptures on work ethic and on, servant leadership and being a good servant and, taking initiative and all that stuff. And I said, go get me 4 scriptures on work ethic. And I asked for it because I should have been a little more clear. 3 out of the 4 scriptures had the word slave in it when they brought it back to me. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm like, now tell me why you picked that other than the word slave, because you are our children. And so that was pretty funny, man. No, man. Well, John, I think we'll probably go wrap up. I can cut that a little bit out, but man, I appreciate you just getting together and just kind of sharing. We talked beforehand, didn't really know what direction the conversation was going to go, and I really enjoyed the piece. Like even learning something new about you, like tonight, like it's pretty amazing, dude. And like I hope those who are listening just kind of engage with the testimony of faithfulness that you see here. Like it's one thing to talk about obedience to the Lord, but like. And not to say that John didn't, even he admitted that he struggled with it at times. Like it's a process of learning that obedience. But I think the more we learn to just be obedient to the Lord in the small things, the Bible says faithful in little, faithful in much. We begin to see his provision show up at every turn. And like John's testimony, man, not even just the drugs. I mean, that was a miracle in and of itself. But then everything that happened afterwards, you're just seeing a lifetime of faithfulness. And man, I'm grateful to call you a friend, and I'm honored to see what the Lord has done in your life. It's just like your testimony before people and before the Lord is phenomenal, man. And so I appreciate you, and well done, like continuing to run the course, man, and stay faithful before the Lord. It's an awesome thing. And if you're in the Stanton area, John is youth pastor over at Calvary Assembly of God on Spring Hill Road. So I know I've got people that watch from all over the country, but if you happen to be in the local area, go check their church out. They meet on the weekends, 10:30?
10:30.
10:30 on Sunday. So, hey, thank you guys for tuning in. John, thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for taking the time to check out this clip. If you enjoyed this, you can catch another clip here, or you can click here for the full episode. Have a great day.